7 hours long, I believe. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's actually 8 hours long. So that gives us 8 days to read this book. I'll do a little bit of an audio check to make sure that you can actually hear the book. If you have ever been in a narcissistic relationship before, like, you know that there's a lot of psychological bullshit that happens in narcissistic relationships. And this book is going to cover a lot of those issues. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about narcissism, learning how to heal yourself from the abuse, this book is definitely going to be very helpful in helping you do all of that. Oops, I accidentally hit the wrong book. Okay. Give me just 1 minute. These are opening credits. Hold on.
How adult daughters can understand and heal from lost nurturance, protection, and guidance by Kelly McDaniel. This audiobook includes a supplemental PDF that contains writing activities, a resource section with links to
I didn't see that part. I didn't see that part. It says an accompanying PDF, but I did not see that. So I am going to look for it because I did not see the PDF.
As well as the endnotes, acknowledgements, and about the author sections from the print edition. I will be referring to the PDF throughout the recording, so be sure to have it handy as you listen. It should be among the files you downloaded when you purchased this audiobook. Forward. My mother died when I was 18 years old, while I was a freshman at a small liberal arts college in Vermont. 10 years later, I wrote her a letter, as I did every year on the anniversary of her death. Dear Mom, I wrote, you've been dead for 10 years. I'm already crying, tears streaming down my cheeks, warm and lucid. This letter will be different from the others, I wrote. Things aren't the same anymore. It has taken these 10 years for me to finally start to care about myself. I never realized how much I hated myself, how afraid of myself I was. This last year has been terribly hard and wonderfully healing. I'm alone now, all alone. No more alcohol, no more boys, no more self-destruction, no more hiding from all the pain. Just me, here and alone. And I still miss you so much. 10 years feels like a lifetime. I'm no longer the girl I once was, the girl who had a mother. But I don't want to do this anymore. Obsess over your death. I don't want my whole life to be about you. I'm grateful, so incredibly grateful, for who I have become because of this loss. But I don't want my life to revolve around it anymore. And I don't want to be terrible to myself anymore. I don't want to hide. I don't want to feel desperate or lonely or hateful anymore. I want to stride forward. I want to shirk the heavy weight of all this loss. I want to throw it off like a coat worn on a summer day. I'm tired of it all. I just want to be me. And to do that, I have to let you go. And I think that maybe, just maybe, in letting you go, in not trying to hold on to you, I can be at peace. I haven't been at peace, Mom. All these last 10 years, I've been in so much pain. It's been so hard, and I don't want to do it anymore. But Mom, I need you to release me as well. Love, your only daughter, Claire. This letter is difficult for me to reread now, almost 25 years after her death. My heart breaks for the younger version of me who wrote this letter, and my heart breaks for my mother, who never would have wanted me to feel so much pain. 3 years after I wrote that letter, I gave birth to my first child, a daughter. And in those early weeks and months after she was born, I sat in the nursery holding her in my arms, and I wept. My mother-in-law worried that I had postpartum. She remarked that she didn't remember ever having cried so much when her children were born. But it wasn't postpartum. It was the realization that I had not let my mother go, that I never would, and that I didn't have to. Holding my daughter in my arms, I knew that the reason I missed my mother so much was because of the same thing I was experiencing right there in the nursery with my own infant. That primal mother-daughter relationship. I realized that this is a love and a bond that runs so deep that no woman could ever deny the presence or the lack of it. I've now been a therapist specializing in grief for over a decade. I've sat with hundreds, maybe thousands of women as they have processed their own mother loss. The profound depth of emotion that comes with the absence of a mother never ceases to amaze me. Whether a woman loses her mother to death, as I did, or to abandonment in its many forms, the experience will be one that a woman will reckon with for her entire life. When Kelly McDaniel first told me the title of her book, Mother Hunger, I knew in an instant that this would be a book that would change the lives of everyone who read it. While there have been many books written about loss, and some about mother loss in particular, none have ever so succinctly addressed the experience of what it means to long for a mother. I see many versions of mother loss in my work as a therapist. I see women who have lost their mothers recently, and women who have lost mothers decades ago. I see women who lost their mothers to cancer, suicide, murder, accidents, and illness. And I see women who still have their mothers but have lost them to abandonment, addiction, memory malfunction, mental illness, and more. Some of the losses are more traumatic than others, but the experience of longing that comes with this loss is the same. The mother hunger these women carry shapes each of them in unique and lasting ways, all of which Kelly addresses in this profoundly brave book. But in my eyes, what Kelly does most importantly in Mother Hunger is validate the experience of mother loss. The phrase I hear from my clients more than any other is, "I can't believe I'm still dealing with this." But as Kelly illustrates, the experience of yearning for a mother affects women on such deep levels that it is often carried not just throughout a woman's lifetime, but even passed down through generations.
Yep.
That mother hunger not only validates this impact, but provides us with solutions and a pathway to heal from it, will have ripple effects for years to come. It took me a long time to forgive myself for being so affected by my mother's death. But for many women, escaping the pain of mother loss is elusive and hard won. Kelly's book will change that forever. Knowing that mother hunger is now out in the world, waiting to be found by the women who need it most, eases my heart and gives me hope that healing is possible. If I were to write my mother another letter today, it would tell her that I didn't let her go all those years ago, that I'll never stop loving her, and yet I have found ways to be at peace in my life. I hope the same comes true for all who read this book. Claire Bidwell Smith, LCPC, author of Anxiety, the Missing Stage of Grief. Introduction. In her beautifully written memoir, Our Lady of Perpetual Hunger, Lisa Donovan writes, "We carry one another's pain so deeply, the women in my family. It is like an extra organ, a broken chamber of our hearts that none of us knows how to make work, blocking the normal things that other people's hearts do." Donovan captures the heartbreak, the broken chamber that some daughters inherit from their mothers. While I was writing this book, Donovan's words were medicine for my soul, an acknowledgement of the legacy of ancestral heartbreak. It is a topic that is hard to speak about, write about, or know about. Over the course of 2 years, I almost stopped writing this manuscript, partly because I'm frequently reminded how much folks don't want to know about this issue, but mostly because it's just plain hard. Routinely, I asked myself, why do this? But I kept going for one reason. This is the audiobook I wish I had as a young woman. Born to a dynamic line of women who raised children the best they could, I come from a painful background like many of you. Although I benefit from white skin, a robust education, and other advantages, even a life of privilege can't protect someone from mother hunger. My maternal great-grandmother abandoned my grandmother when she was a small girl. She took her other daughter and left town to live with a new man, ultimately one of 5 men that she would marry and divorce. The little girl she left behind grew up to become my grandmother. I loved my grandmother desperately. We only visited once a year, but those shared times were magical for me. My mother didn't like my grandmother very much. Undoubtedly, the legacy of abandonment had left my grandmother hungry for something that my mother had no business providing. It must have been a burden to be her daughter. I don't know the specifics because my mother has very little memory of her childhood and isn't inclined to talk about these things. I didn't fully comprehend the concept of mother hunger until well into my own motherhood journey and career path. But even at a young age, I knew something was wrong in my family. With hindsight and clinical perspective, I don't think having more information could have helped me while I was in my mother's care. I was too busy trying to be a good daughter. I was busy surviving. Fortunately, in my early 20s, I stumbled into a women's studies course where I found relevant, eye-opening guidance, gave me ingredients for naming mother hunger. Fast forward 20 years to the publication of my first book, Ready to Heal, where I first named mother hunger as the root of addictive love. Since then, I've been helping women understand and heal the heartache that emerges from poor early attachment. Mother hunger, how adult daughters can understand and heal from lost nurturance, protection, and guidance, is a collection of wisdom gleaned from the past 3 decades of research, practice, and learning. It's a letter from me to you, from one daughter to another, about the legacy of living with a heartbreak that is part biological, part psychological, part cultural, and part spiritual. In spite of diverse stories, what I've found is that each woman with mother hunger yearns for the same thing, a certain quality of love, a nurturing, safe, inspiring love, the kind of love we think of as maternal love. It is a love that we need for a firm start in life. It is an unconditional love that no romantic relationship, friendship, or birthday cake can replace. Many feel this singular love can also be offered by fathers. While it's clear that daughters raised by attentive, nurturing fathers have many advantages, fathers can't replace mothers. Naming mother hunger isn't about dismissing the importance of fathers or other primary caregivers, nor is it about blaming mothers for what they could not provide. Mother hunger is a framework to help you identify what the essential elements of maternal care are so that you can recognize what you lost and reclaim what you need. In this audiobook, we will explore what causes mother hunger and what to do about it. As you listen and make discoveries, the healing power of recognition won't always feel good, but it will bring you fresh hope and renewed energy. Rest assured that mother hunger can be healed without your mother's physical presence or recognition of your sorrow. Mother hunger doesn't mean you want to be a mother or need to be close to your mother. Mother hunger can happen whether you were raised by your own mother, an adoptive mother, a foster mother, a father, two mothers, two fathers, a single mother, or multiple caregivers. Mother hunger is less about who actually raised you than it is about which developmental needs were missing during your formative years. Mother hunger names the longing that you live with, the yearning for a certain quality of love. The following chapters are organized to gently support you. In the first chapter, we define mother hunger so that right away you find relief. The rest of the audiobook will detail the 3 essential elements of maternal love. Starting with the maternal element of nurturance, we'll learn from animals, talk about attachment, and take a closer look at the complicated relationship with food and sex that is part of mother hunger. From there, we'll move on to the second essential maternal element of protection. A review of the turbulent cultural forces that damage women will build compassion for why so many of us have symptoms of mother hunger. The true life case of Dirty John illustrates the tragedy that happens when a mother can't protect her daughter and shows how fear is woven into the fabric of being female. Next, we'll explore the third essential maternal element of guidance, how a mother inspires her daughter. Then, as we near the end of the audiobook, we'll take a look at third-degree mother hunger, a relational third-degree burn that can devastate a woman's life, as it did with both Judy Garland and Edith Piaf. Lastly, we will examine the grief embedded in mother hunger. Mother hunger comes in different forms, some more severe than others, so healing looks different for everyone. Some of you no longer have a living mother, so your path will be different from those who do. Whether your mother is alive or not, healing involves replacing what was lost during your formative years. Not all the ideas in this audiobook will fit your experience as a daughter, but somewhere in these chapters, you may find the right words for the pain that haunts you. And when you do, fresh clarity directs your innate healing process. While your recovery path is unique, there are some common signs of healing that you can look forward to. Increased emotional security, an easier time making decisions, less anxiety, and an understanding of your attachment style. You will find compassion for the choices you've made, even the ones you most regret. And it will become easier to select friends and partners who are kind and respectful. If you have children, loving them becomes easier too. Mother hunger is not uncommon, but without a name, it hides in secrecy and shame. Giving yourself permission to learn and talk about this relational injury is radical. It is a brave step toward reclaiming the love you need. If you are a mother, it might be tempting to listen to this audiobook as mothering instructions or to revisit the things you regret. Try not to do this. Please listen to this audiobook as a daughter. This audiobook is about learning what you missed during your development so that you can reclaim the tender parts of yourself that were sacrificed to earn your mother's love or survive her absence. As you piece together the story of being your mother's daughter, you will find new resources for lost nurturance, protection, and guidance. Facing the heartbreak that's running your life opens opportunities for joy and connection. As you listen and gather new awareness, my wholehearted support is with you. Chapter 1, Naming Mother Hunger. If there were a job description for motherhood, it might look something like this. Ideal candidate must be a self-starter, able to comfort and bond with a new vulnerable human by holding, feeding, and responding to nonverbal cues. Responsibilities include protecting this human from external threats and actively engaging in their academic, spiritual, and social development. Candidate needs equal parts tenderness and strength, grace under pressure, and healthy boundaries. This job is unpaid. Why would anyone sign up for this job? It's demanding, often thankless, and the pay is terrible. A mother's work is astounding. Isolation, financial stress, and gender discrimination compound the overwhelming responsibilities that come with nurturing and protecting a newborn and guiding a child through complex stages of human development. Additionally, mothering and motherhood is overly romanticized or dramatized, making it taboo to describe the reality as anything short of a divine experience or a horrendous burden. Both extremes erase the complexity of mothering. When a woman feels less than for choosing mothering over other types of work, or is judged for placing her career aspirations on hold, something is very wrong with our collective thinking. Maternal love is our first experience of what love feels like, and the maternal care we receive informs how we feel about ourselves throughout life. Mothering is the most important human endeavor there is. And yet, when we try to define what makes a good mother, it's difficult to find the right words. We're without an accurate, universal definition for mother or mothering. When I look up mothering, the Cambridge Dictionary defines it as, quote, the process of caring for children as their mother, or of caring for people in the way a mother does, end of quote. Merriam-Webster defines mothering as, quote, to bring forth from the womb, to give birth to, end of quote. These definitions give us nothing concrete. They imply mothering is simple and innate to females. To help women heal mother hunger, I needed a working definition of mothering. It's taken me years of listening to broken-hearted adult women and a thorough exploration of attachment theory to create a framework that can guide the treatment process. What I've found is that mothering requires 3 essential elements: nurturance, protection, and guidance. The first 2, nurturance and protection, are the most primitive needs little ones have from mothers. Guidance, the 3rd element, comes later. If we are deprived of one or more of these developmental needs, we struggle with symptoms of insecure attachment as we mature. For example, without early maternal nurturance, we grow up hungry for touch and belonging. Without early maternal protection, we are constantly anxious and afraid. Without maternal guidance, we lack an internal compass directing our choices. These are the symptoms of mother hunger. Mother hunger may sound like another excuse to blame mothers for our problems, but it's not. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When we understand that mothers love us the best way they can, and the only way they know how, blame has no place. A mother can only give her child what she has. Mother hunger emerges from the intergenerational inheritance of growing up in a culture that prefers men, masculine traits, and independence, while devaluing women, feminine traits, and interdependence. If we can put aside mother blaming, or the tendency to make sweeping generalizations about women juggling careers and thus struggling to be present to their families, our collective understanding of mother hunger could guide an inspired effort to support women in preparation for motherhood. After all, in the long run, Everyone benefits from nurturing, protective maternal care and guidance. We need our mothers. If you have ever felt too needy or dependent, this section might help you understand why. We need our mothers. This need is biologically hardwired into our bodies and brains. If we didn't have enough mothering, yearning for love stays with us. By mother, I'm primarily referencing the biological mother, but mother is also a verb, and an adult with the desire, ability, and willingness to nurture, protect, and guide a child can be a mother. However, I appreciate and agree with Erica Komisar's observation in her book, Being There, quote, our denial of the very specific and special physical, emotional role of a mother to her child, particularly in our attempts to be modern, is not in the best interest of children and their needs, end of quote. Like Komisar, I have a front row seat in my practice to what happens when this important relationship is compromised. Mothering is a consuming occupation because little ones come with very powerful survival instincts. From the very beginning of life, instincts compel newborns to stay close to their biological mother, as her voice, smell, and body are already familiar. She is home. Like adults who want one primary lover or a best friend, babies thrive in a familiar, soothing relationship during their early months. This is biology. When the biological mother can't be available, an individual other than the biological mother can be the primary caregiver. Sometimes, however, as in the case of medical emergency, maternal death, or adoption, an initial separation from the biological mother's body can add complications for bonding with an alternative caregiver. According to adoption expert Dr. Marcy Axness, quote, nature is a strict taskmaster. Neither the best intentions nor the noblest justifications can rewrite her laws of neurophysiology, end of quote. Axness researches and writes primarily about adoption and adoptees, working to solve the social science riddle that explains why adoptees have more mental health problems than non-adoptees. She cites Dr. Gabor Mate, who says that adults who were adopted as infants, quote, harbor a powerful and lifelong sense of rejection, end of quote. The work of Mate and Axness teaches us a great deal about our earliest life processes and how risky separation from our mother can be. I love Axness' insights here. Quote, tremendous blessings can be experienced by all the participants in adoption, but we must never forget that most often those blessings are born from loss. The loss for the birth parents of a child they will not parent. The loss of their dreamed of biological child the adopted parents won't have. And the loss for the adopted child of his or her biological, genealogical, and possibly cultural connections. Compassionate care for the separation trauma, loss, and grief suffered by a newborn under any circumstances, adoption, surrogacy, NICU care, needn't wait a moment. It can and should begin immediately. End of quote. The baby who has experienced an abrupt loss of her biological mother requires extra care and recognition of separation distress. When this doesn't happen, the early rupture can cause lifelong heartache. If this is part of your story, I hope it's validating to know that early maternal separation is a hardship. Missing maternal care. Mother hunger is a term I created to describe what it feels like to grow up without a quality of mothering that imprints emotional worth and relational security. Mother hunger feels like an emptiness in the soul that is hard to describe because it may set in during infancy or before language forms and become part of how you always feel. The term mother hunger captures a compelling, insatiable yearning for love, the sort of love we dream about but can't find. Many of us mistake mother hunger for a craving for romantic love, but in truth, we are longing for the love we didn't receive during our formative moments, months, and years. Essential elements of maternal care provide the environment for a robust, healthy brain that is ready for bonding and learning. Babies need reliable, sensitive human closeness in order for the brain to develop the necessary social areas for human connection. Our first love, a mother's love, teaches us how love will feel in the future. Quote, today, when fathers are more involved in raising their children than ever before, the idea of the unique and irreplaceable role of a mother may seem old-fashioned. And yet, there is a significant evidence that biology has an impact on the different ways men and women nurture. And the most recent research has shown that a mother's unique presence is critical to the emotional development and mental health of her children in their early years. Hungry to attach. If you are listening to this audiobook, it's likely that sometimes you feel crazy, ashamed, or broken, but you aren't. Mother hunger is deeply misunderstood, and people who don't have mother hunger simply can't relate to what it feels like.
They don't
This,
understand.
of course, leaves us feeling alone with all our confusing emotions and behaviors. In 2008, I used prevailing clinical language to describe mother hunger as an attachment disorder. I regret this terminology because mother hunger isn't a disorder, it's an injury, a heartbreak that forms from inadequate maternal nurturance, protection, or guidance in early development. Injury aptly describes mother hunger because living with it hurts all the time. It's like grief, complicated grief that comes from carrying an unacknowledged, invisible burden all by yourself. As a child, if essential elements of maternal nurturance and protection were missing, you didn't stop loving your mother. You simply didn't learn to love yourself. This is the essence of mother hunger. Mother hunger is a heartbreak that touches everything in your world, particularly your relationship with others and your own sense of worth. In this audiobook, I will explain this concept from many perspectives, biological, emotional, and psychological, so that you no longer feel confused, crazy, or alone. In attachment theory language, mother hunger is a way to rename insecure attachment. Insecure attachment is a bothersome label because it implies that something is wrong with you and how you relate to others, and no one wants to be called insecure. But insecure attachment is not a character weakness. It's a term created for research purposes that categorizes how you attach to others, which is a direct result of how you were nurtured and protected as a child. At least 50% of the population has an insecure attachment style. We'll look more closely at this in the next chapter. So if your early years left you with an undesirable or untrustworthy experience of relationships, you're in good company. When early needs for nurturance and protection aren't met, it's a setup for mother hunger to grow. Although many adults have mother hunger, it shows up differently for each of us, based on which maternal element was missing, for how long, and to what degree. Your hunger may be mild or severe. Mother hunger comes from events that may have happened before language is formed. When a mother's care is your entire world. To get an idea of this, think of your biological mother as your first home. Her body, embrace, and emotions were your first environment, inseparable from your newborn body and emotions. For an infant, a mother's body is the natural habitat that regulates breathing, body temperature, sleep rhythms, and heart rate. Nature's design is for her to stay close so that your development goes smoothly. When a baby is alerted to a need by hunger pain or separation, nature's design is for her mother's soothing touch and sounds to meet that need. Over time, with maternal responsiveness, positive interactions strengthen developmental reward systems that help us trust others and manage stress. In this way, the daily interactions and nighttime comfort between a mother and child are the neurobiological glue for all future healthy relationships. If for whatever reason your mother was not ready to be a mother, or if, like many, she was unaware of the concepts we will cover here, science suggests that you may carry the ambivalence, fear, or anger that she felt. Her responsiveness to your needs and her physical presence may have been inadequate. Although you have no clear memory of her early care, your body does. When essential elements of maternal care were absent, the result is an attachment injury that becomes the foundation of future thinking and feeling. Implicit memory. Your body knows the story of how early love felt. For this reason, much of the focus of this audiobook will be on the first 2 years of life, before memory is explicit and cognition is available, when thinking isn't thinking at all, it's feeling. Infant and toddler thought is a body-based, emotional experience informed by the early environment. Since the thinking brain, or neocortex, develops sometime after the age of 3, when children start asking why a lot, logic isn't available before then. We can think of it like this. For a baby, feelings are facts. If baby is afraid or hungry, and a sensitive adult responds to her cues, all is well. If no one is there, all is not well. Separation from a familiar caregiver means danger. Emotions are stored in the body and create a certain reality or belief system. The world is safe and so am I, or the world is scary and I'm all alone. Stored sensations like these become implicit memory. Unlike explicit memory that is conscious and has language, implicit memory is unconscious and has none. Implicit memories reside deep within the limbic structures of the brain, silently whispering messages of safety or danger to the rest of your body. Early experiences impact the developing central nervous system through feelings and bodily sensations. In this way, remembering things from your early years is more of a sensation than a conscious awareness. Feelings create implicit memory from pre-verbal, precognitive moments with and without our mother. Early emotional experiences literally become embedded in the architecture of our brain. When an infant's vulnerable nervous system picks up that things are not safe, as with early maternal separations or insensitive care, nature calls forth a fear response. And fear releases cortisol and adrenaline, which can be toxic for developing brain regions. When fear isn't soothed and happens regularly, a baby stores the fearful sensations in her cells, building a body and brain poised for danger, hungry for love, but wary of human connection. Understanding implicit memory explains why sometimes we have no idea why we act the way we do. We can't see the distress living in our body. Early memories are dissociated from consciousness, but they direct our moods and our health throughout life. Dr. Dan J. Siegel talks about the importance of integrating implicit and explicit memory so that you can gain insight into how your past is impacting you. You're doing that now by acknowledging mother hunger and learning how to heal it. Human connection. The first environment each and every one of us experiences is our biological mother. In utero, her emotions and nutrition inform us about the world we are entering and how to live in it. Our sense of belonging begins here. Human connection, our ability to bond with and trust others, is first developed in the womb and continues growing within a suitable primary relationship so that we are ready for social bonds with others. We know that the largest predictor of human health and happiness isn't wealth or status. It's the number of loving relationships we have. The basis of lifelong psychobiological well-being is established during the first 1,000 days of our lives. Dr. Alan Shore, world leader in attachment theory, stresses the importance of the first 1,000 days, which encompass conception to age 2. He calls these first days, quote, the origin of the early forming subjective implicit self. Neuroscience informs us that the brain doesn't differentiate emotional pain from physical pain. The body can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart. An infant who is hungry or lonely feels pain. When there isn't a close caregiver to relieve her, the pain intensifies. Her brain can't inform her body about why she's in pain. If maternal care is compromised during these first 3 years, this lack of nurturance is heartbreaking for a baby. The science is irrefutable. Children need nurturance, protection, and guidance from their early caregivers in order to develop the necessary brain processes for optimal living. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, identifies, quote, safe, stable, and nurturing relationships, end of quote, as foundational for promoting the healthy social and emotional development of children. Within the context of safe, stable, and nurturing relationships, adults can buffer children's fight or flight responses in the face of stressors. These relationships further allow children to optimize positive personal development and promote their social skills. The CDC defines safe, stable, and nurturing as follows. Safety. The extent to which a child is free from fear and secure from physical or psychological harm within their social and physical environments. Stability. The degree of predictability and consistency in a child's social, emotional, and physical environment. Nurturing. The extent to which children's physical, emotional, and developmental needs are sensitively and consistently met. Note that while advocating for children, the CDC also emphasizes that adults need safety, stability, and nurturing with other adults, often referred to as social support or social capital, to maintain nurturing relationships with their children. The Center for Healthcare Strategies explains how, quote, one critical outcome of safety, stability, and nurturing is secure attachment. We can't expect infants and children not to have these needs met simply because they are inconvenient for us to meet. The cost of ignoring them is too great. As Erica Commissar points out, quote, we want to eradicate mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and violence in children and young adults, but we don't really want to look too deeply at the root of the problem. End of quote. If we look too closely, major changes would be required of us to remedy systemic issues of parental leave and misogynistic life forces that objectify and disempower women. We'll take a closer look at patriarchy in Chapter 6, Protection. Belonging is survival. Birth isn't supposed to feel like leaving home. Babies are designed to stay physically close to their biological mothers, their most familiar environment. Mothers are shelter and nourishment. In the first 6 to 9 months of life, babies can't distinguish the self from the mother. This is nature's plan to ensure infant survival. Babies' brains and bodies are built for close care with the mother, which means being carried, held, and nursed. Babies simply aren't designed for long hours away from their primary caregiver. Immature developing systems like breathing, heart rate, temperature, and emotional security rely on human touch and proximity. I want my mommy is the universally recognized plea of a distressed toddler. We've heard this cry. Maybe we felt this cry. The plea echoes deeply inside our hearts. What happens when cries go unanswered or meet irritated, impatient responses? Do we stop needing our mom? Not at all. Over time, without maternal comfort, we do learn to bury the need, but the need doesn't go away. Unmet needs for maternal nurturance and protection fester like an angry infection. The body holds the memory of emotional pain and over time may generate chronic distress and insecurity. When distress is the norm, it becomes toxic. Toxic stress creates physiological inflammation, weakening the immune system. In this way, lack of early nurturance or protection is a form of adversity and creates an attachment injury. The frightened or lonely toddler within follows us into adulthood, wreaking havoc on our bodies, relationships, and careers. This early broken heart is the root of mother hunger. No one loves you like your mother. The truth is, we never really outgrow our need for a mother to comfort us, celebrate our accomplishments, or make us soup. To quote author Adrienne Rich, quote, there is, in most of us, a girl child still longing for a woman's nurturance, tenderness, and approval. End of quote. For daughters, healthy maternal love always feels good. Mothers and daughters who remain in warm connection throughout their lifespan are both healthier and happier than those who are lost to each other. Mothers who provide adequate nurturance, protection, and guidance create securely attached daughters who navigate life's challenges without unnecessary distress. But the myth that all mothers love their daughters erases the truth that many women know. Maternal love didn't feel good. The fantasy of maternal love did not apply. The myth creates confusion for many daughters who never knew this kind of tenderness. Mother hunger, yearning for maternal love, can come from well-meaning mothers who could not be there, or from mothers who were there and wanted to love, but didn't have the proper infrastructure for attachment programmed into their own psyches. Mother hunger does not discriminate based on race or class, because infant needs are universal. The kind of care we received as infants and toddlers teaches us whether we are worthy, lovable, and safe. Truly, what I have found is that having an unkind or neglectful mother can be as damaging as having no mother at all. Daughters of compromised mothers cling to hope. Hope that the mother they have will become the mother they need. Enduring hope creates a pathological fantasy that keeps women trapped in cycles of disappointment and grief. Choices feel more like compulsions. Decision-making is based on external pressures rather than internal values. Substitutes are needed. In childhood, surrogate mothers may look a lot like cake, ice cream, or fairy tales. But eventually, vodka, drugs, or hasty head-over-heels relationships take their place. In all stages of life, untreated mother hunger craves a quick fix for the empty hole lurking inside. Motherless daughters. After publishing my first book, Ready to Heal, women who identified with mother hunger sought my support, and I needed better language to describe the wordless despair that followed adult daughters into boardrooms, restaurants, romance, and motherhood. Hope Edelman's book, Motherless Daughters, magically came across my path. Edelman, a gifted journalist and writer, lost her own mother prematurely. She found language for the emotional legacy of being a motherless daughter, expertly describing the emotional, social, and psychological arrested development that happens without maternal care. Her book fascinated me because her descriptions of motherless daughters sounded like my clients, even though most of my clients still had living mothers. To make sense of this, I found the important work of Dr. Pauline Boss on ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a term she coined to explain what happens when someone we love changes, as in the case of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or a traumatic brain injury. It occurs when psychological absence coexists with physical presence. In other words, when a person is physically present, but psychologically and emotionally absent. Boss's description helped me understand why my clients looked like Edelman's motherless daughters. A daughter may grow up with motherless symptoms because she is missing her mother's attention and attunement. Attention is essential to nurturing and protecting. To feel loved, children need their mother's emotional attunement as well as her physical presence. The absence of maternal emotional availability directly impacts the quality of her care. Lack of maternal attunement happens for many reasons, such as work demands, smartphones, various addictions, or poor health. A mother's own unhealed psychological coping can impair her capacity for attention and attunement, removing her from the present moment and her daughter. A mother is first a daughter. When I need language for mother hunger, Adrienne Rich always inspires me. Rich writes here, and I quote, "Many of us were mothered in ways we cannot yet even perceive. We only know that our mothers were in some incalculable way on our side. But if a mother had deserted us by dying, or putting us up for adoption, or because life had driven her into alcohol or drugs, chronic depression or madness, if she had been forced to leave us with indifferent, uncaring strangers in order to earn our food money, if she had tried to be a good mother according to the demands of the institution and had thereby turned into an anxious, worrying, puritanical keeper of our virginity, or if she had simply left us because she needed to live without a child. The child in us, the small female who grew up in a male-controlled world, still feels, at moments, wildly unmothered. End of quote. Many well-meaning mothers didn't provide adequate nurturance, protection, or guidance for their daughters because they simply couldn't share what they didn't have. Mothers are first daughters, and they may be living with their own unidentified and untreated mother hunger. Every mother is carrying the resources, beliefs, and traumas of her maternal ancestors. And for each woman, quote, the loss of the daughter to the mother to the daughter, is the essential female tragedy. End of quote. For many reasons, listening to this audiobook can be triggering. Identifying mother hunger is about healing unmet essential needs now that you are an adult. As you go through the concepts in this audiobook, you may vacillate between feeling angry with your mother and feeling like you're betraying her by reading this. Most of us are trained to be good daughters, and we minimize our mother's behavior no matter how much it hurt. On the other hand, you may want to blame your mother. Blame is a natural stage of grieving and a very normal part of mother hunger, but it's a terrible place to get stuck. If you find yourself unable to move past blame, it might be a sign that you need more support for healing this wound. If you have children of your own, listening to this audiobook might be extra challenging. Mothering is not for the faint of heart. While we are biologically wired to nurture and protect children, mothers receive conflicting and contradictory advice that makes the job much harder. You already know what it's like to struggle with guilt because you don't measure up to a manufactured mothering standard. You've had those days when you lost your patience and your temper and your mind. You may question why you had children in the first place. These are all normal feelings that come along with the incredible pressures of mothering in a cultural wilderness that doesn't adequately support you. If your children are older, estranged from you, or struggling in their life, you may feel despair from the loss of closeness with them. But as you gain new insight, remember to stay focused on your experience as a daughter. Although I cover principles of mothering, this isn't a parenting manual. I've included this information solely to help you identify what you lost as you grew up to be the person that you are today. Healing your mother hunger is the purpose here, not an examination of your mothering. The relationship with your mother is why you're here with me. While you recover lost parts of yourself, please don't go to your children, no matter how old they are, to process raw feelings about this material. As your heart heals, your children will inherit the gifts of your labor without any explanation. In the well-crafted words of my grandmother's hands, Resmaa Menakem, MSW, says, quote, one of the best things each of us can do, not only for ourselves, but also for our children and grandchildren, is to metabolize our own pain and heal our trauma. End of quote. If you are the mother of a daughter, trust that daughters always want their mothers. At almost any stage of life, a new bond is possible, particularly during certain powerful transitions, such as her adolescence or becoming a mother herself, when many daughters once again long for a mother's love and guidance. For many of you, hearing these words may trigger painful flashbacks to your childhood. If this happens, I encourage you to find a well-trained, trauma-sensitive attachment therapist who can help you make sense of disturbing emotions and memories. Healing mother hunger doesn't happen in isolation. Mother hunger is a relational wound that wants relational repair. To avoid getting stuck in despair, it's essential to have a trustworthy guide. Men, women, and mother hunger. I'm often asked whether men, too, can suffer from mother hunger. The short answer is yes. All babies need maternal nurturance and protection. If they are missing, both boys and girls experience mother hunger. But as boys mature, their need for guidance moves from the mother to the father. Boys typically turn toward the world of men to find mentors and to fit into cultural masculine ideals. For non-dominant boys, this process is loaded with complications, but mother hunger may not be one of them. While diverse role models are also helpful to girls' maturation, they specifically benefit from uninterrupted maternal guidance. In fact, it is through their mother's body, mind, and spirit that daughters define femininity, biology, and themselves. Good enough mothering. Decades ago, Dr. Donald Winnicott, a British pediatrician and psychoanalyst, gave us the concept of the good enough mother. At the same time, he also gave us one of the only working definitions of mothering. Winnicott explained that good enough mothers tune into the needs of their newborns. Somehow, good enough mothers understand the temporary urgency of a baby's needs. They seem to know that sensitive responsiveness is critical for their newborn's health, and that there is something essentially good about the early bonding processes. Barring other life adversities, good enough mothers help build securely attached children who meet developmental milestones because they feel safe and loved. The term good enough makes me uncomfortable. While part of me finds it a relief, a way to think about mothering, or anything else for that matter, without holding ourselves to an impossible standard, it minimizes the monumental importance of early attachment processes and the critical importance of mothering. Therefore, it's a term I won't be using to explain mother hunger. 3 essential elements of mothering. To understand, treat, and write about mother hunger, I needed a framework more precise than good enough to quantify maternal love. Over time, I identified 3 essential maternal elements that contribute to a sense of worth and security: nurturance, protection, and guidance. These are the elements of care that translate into maternal love. Nurturance. A mother is our first source of nurturance. She provides both food and comfort. Her ability to respond to hunger and our need for closeness teaches us about the world from the first moments of life. From her nurturance, we learn whether or not we matter, and we learn how love feels. Protection. Maternal protection is basic to survival. Protection enhances development by buffering threats that would otherwise create fear and anxiety. These threats could include anything from lack of shelter to angry siblings or insensitive adults. Protection begins in utero and continues for a long time as daughters require maternal protection from forces that devalue and violate girls. And guidance. As they grow older, daughters watch mothers for cues about what it's like to be a woman. Daughters learn how to treat other women from a mother's respect and care. They learn how to be strong and kind, warm and brave from her example. If the first two elements of nurturance and protection were missing, however, it's unlikely a daughter will trust her mother's guidance. The bond is simply too fragile. Instead, she may break away from her mother's rules, her mother's style, or her mother's wishes. Mothers who provide these essential elements are a refuge from the storm of life. Of course, even mothers who provide these elements will make plenty of mistakes along the way. Fortunately, mistakes don't create mother hunger. Mother hunger comes from unacknowledged damage to nurturance, protection, or guidance. Mothers who recognize their mistakes and make repairs keep bonding secure. In order for any mother to do this well, she must be nurtured by friends, protected by partners, and supported by family. If these resources aren't available, a mother may need professional support in order to meet the demands of mothering. Mirroring and empathy. With repetition and predictability, a baby's neural makeup mimics her caregivers, imprinting a template for how to love and how to feel. Warm, regular touch helps her brain grow, feeding the neurons that promote bonding. A baby develops in her mother's arms, against her mother's heart, one breath at a time. In the mother-infant dyad,